Hello to viewers of OutOfThisBinary, it's Timmie here. I'm making this on a Thursday evening. The topic of the week is names, and yeah, my week's been going pretty well. Just been doing the student teaching life. I got a video camera recently today from my campus because I'm going to be assessed soon for my TPA plans, which is teacher performance assessment. I'll be looked at by the state government on video to make sure I'm a legit teacher. So I have this nifty, futuristic video recording system. I think I'll be recording those lessons on starting Monday. So, jumping right into the topic of names, my own history with my name. So, my birth name is Timothy and also Tim, but my childhood name was Timmie, and it was my name all throughout high school. And Timmie was spelled with a Y at the end at first, and I was named after my dad, Timothy and Tim. And I didn't go by Tim until I started going to college, like my freshman year. And the thing is, like, once I started going by the name Tim, I was very much in a point in my life where I was completely lying to myself. And I was completely lying to myself with so much internalized homophobia, heteronormativity, cis-sexist thoughts that I was going to force myself to marry a wife and just sacrifice my own happiness and pretend that I was straight, have a stable career as an engineer, not as a musician, and I would grow up and become an adult someday like my dad. And obviously, I was a failure with trying to lie to myself, and I couldn't do that because it wasn't who I was. But I remember the name started really wearing me down once I started going by that name in college, and it was causing me a lot of unneeded dysphoria. And it wasn't exclusively because I hated my dad with that name. After all, my name right now is still a version of my dad's name, but and it was also, Timmy was also what my dad went by in childhood, but I also just wanted to be my own person, and my family rigidly structured all their plans and sights on me to be like him into adulthood, um, or at least some like form of him, of trying to like live up to the same socioeconomic status, um, romantic and sexual orientation, etc., etc. And that didn't happen, and so that name just causes like a lot of pain for me if I were to be called for a long period of time by Tim or Timothy. I'd rather just go middle of the road, Timmy. Started having people calling me by Timmy again my senior year of college, and it's one syllable, but it made a world of difference for me. It was very empowering for me to reclaim my childhood name, and it lifted so much stress and dysphoria and depression off of me just to go by that name again. And I loved reclaiming the name again. And I know that there were some trans people who would go by their desired name in childhood and like would grow up, later to discover that they're trans or just grow comfortable into that identity and then try to reclaim that name and having it be very powerful for them and very empowering. But what was so empowering for me with like going with that name that I've actually gone by for a majority of my life is like, despite I was always someone who was transgender and living with dysphoria, it felt like a reclamation for me that I always knew myself, and though it wasn't me with the problem ever, but it was how social structures were created and enforced around me. I just always loved the name Timmy. I love just like the frivolousness of it. Um, it just feels like a very queer name for me, and I just have an association with just like the name Timmy, like being capable of anything. um, of course, there were so many cartoon characters named Timmy. There's of course Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents. Which, funny story, during my winter break, I actually dug up some of those old episodes of Fairly Odd Parents because I was just thinking about them. Um, but yeah, I had Timmy Turner as like an icon and an avatar for me when I was growing up, and yeah, I dug out some of those old episodes, and it's funny because Yes, it was kind of a 90s and 2000s TV show, so there is some badly outdated, cringeworthy transphobia that's in the show. I know that there's an episode where Timmy's dad enters a beauty pageant and he's portrayed as being like mentally ill for wanting to be like a beautiful man. And there's an episode that really focuses in on gender norms, and like it starts the episode with like enforcing that boys and girls are like so mutually exclusive and think like so differently from each other. But what's so funny about these episodes is that despite like the apparent transphobia in it, is that they still made like very worthwhile discoveries at the end, such as like Timmy's dad actually wins the beauty pageant, and Timmy actually has an episode where he wishes he was a girl, and so he Cosmo and Wanda like gives Timmy a sex change basically, and then I think he goes by the name Timberly or something, but like after he switches back and becomes like a boy, a male again, um, his sex change wish made it so he realized that boys and girls aren't as mutually exclusive as it was originally portrayed near the beginning of that episode, and so I always loved that. I love having that association with um, Timmy Turner. It took me several months to about a year to actually switch the spelling of my name to an IE at the end instead of a Y. And like I had a summer where I was really struggling with just my identity and who I was in general. And to cope with that, I would go to our local gay bar, the Mix, a lot, and I started doing karaoke there so much during the summer. And I would often see like the other folks that would be there as continuously as I was like were always trans women. They were always the ones like constantly returning, and like I never felt like I interacted with them much because they were usually much older than me, but felt really inspired by that, and I felt like a bit of a connection to them, like seeing them as often as I was there, and it just like really just felt good with me, and I felt like a sense of community with that. Um, and a funny story about the Mix, like I actually had an interaction with someone there who was like DMAB and non-binary, and that interaction like really helped me with coming to terms with my own identity. So that place holds a lot of value for me. Um, but but then like months later, after I like struggled through that summer and was working through my identity before I started like claiming labels of being trans, like once the school year started again, there was like months later of like coming out and then my parents finding out. And then, I started going to the bars again for karaoke. And there was one night where I was wearing a dress and I passed by these trans women and they just like pulled me to the side. And they were like these just older trans women. And like it was a little awkward because they were kind of policing me and they were asking me questions about like bodily transitions and if I was going to take hormones, and I was kind of like, I don't know. Um, and they were kind of like policing me in that way a bit. And even when I like put in my name for karaoke, they asked me like what my name was, and I said it's Timmy, and they're like, oh, well, that's not a girl's name. I'm like, who cares? But then like to kind of like fit in with them, I was like, oh no, well I spell it with an IE at the end, and they're like, oh okay. Um, and I don't know, like that was the first time I started spelling it that way, and it just like clicked with me, and I just kind of liked it, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like when I switched it to that name, I felt like it kept me connected to that older generation of trans women that I feel like have done so much for me. I like it with an IE at the end because it is a bit feminine, but I feel there's also a bit of androgyny to it and a little bit of queerness with it because it's kind of a misspelling of how Timmy's been traditionally spelled. Um, so I feel like that was the first time I started spelling my name that way, and I feel like it's kind of that it acknowledges my own identity as non-binary, but it also like kind of brings me back to that night and helps me feel connected to like a community of like an older generation of trans women that have done so much for me, even if I have disagreements. As far as a legal name change goes, I'm not sure if I will legally change my name. I'm not really concerned about it right now. Um, I will tell you that you can get it changed through the state or local government I'm not sure how much it is. I think it might be over $100 though. Um, but definitely go to an LGBTQ resource center because they can really help with reducing the costs. And I guess for me personally, like, I guess I'd only feel the need to legally change my name depending on if I would feel pushed at all by like family relations in the future, or it's also just a matter of if I can get a lot of people in my personal and professional life to just respect my name Timmy and just to roll with it. So yeah, I'm not really sure right now about legal name changes, but I don't know. It could happen for me. That's all I have to say on the subject. Hope you liked the video. I hope you liked the little rant about good old Timmy Turner. Yeah, this is Timmy for OutOfThisBinary. Hope you're having a good day. Bye.